uh, just to say hello to everybody and to make sure I can get all my little ducks lined up in a row. Happy Father's Day, everybody, by the way. That's one of the things I wanted to do, tell you Happy Father's Day just before we get into it. Now, we're not really on yet, okay? Now, remember now, we're not on yet. This is the pre-show. We're just getting there. I hope everybody's having a good Father. I wonder what's going to happen for Father's Day. I was getting ready to say, where are you going to eat? Are you going to dinner? That's not funny, is it? I know it's not. So I'm just saying, well, I'm going. I mean, some of you may be going somewhere to eat, you know. I'm trying to get my posts and things straight.
They are saying Happy Father's Day, Pastor.
They are? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for saying Happy Father's Day. They're telling me what's going on, so I understand that. That's what everybody's telling me, Happy Father's Day. I'm trying to get this, everybody tells me, why don't you let somebody else do that? I can't. I'm trying to be independent over here. And Happy Father's Day, Happy Father's Day, Happy Father's Day. Thank you. Because see, then evidently every now and then it pops in and I see it.
It is 10:30 though.
Is it 10:30?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So the pre-show is over, right?
We are locked in.
Okay. The pre-show is over, everybody. I guess I didn't. Okay, I didn't get my other one locked in. I guess I can lock that in later. Welcome. If you're watching this by rebroadcast and watching this by revideo after the time that we're live is over, thank you so much for watching us. And thank you for being with us today. And thank you for being with me on Father's Day. I thought about this. Normally, I would be at ALC and Abundant Life Center for Dynamic Living, Abundant Life Cathedral, for those of you that have known all of our expressions. And of course, we'd all be together and everybody was hollering Happy Father's Day. So thank you so much for thinking about that today. We are in a different phase of our world, a different phase of our society. Our country is going through a metamorphosis. Our country is going through a change. And with that change, we're seeing what we really are about. And so I'm going to approach this Father's Day. It's going to be a Father's Day message. I've never really preached them or talked about or dealt with them like that, but it's going to deal with certain things. Actually, today I'm going to talk about statues and images. And you've been hearing about how they've been putting all those statues down. Statues and images, which is so important. I'm not going to go into a lot of news today. I'm more concerned with this one thing. I don't know if I want to call it a pillar, But there are four things that are so important to you and me as individuals in our spirituality. And those are questions that I ask myself when I get up in the morning. I make sure I ask myself every day, who am I? Why am I here? What do I want? And there's at least three, but I always ask that fourth one. What can I give? Because I realize that what I give is what comes back into my life. But I have been dealing with that question, who am I? And I have been on it. I've been having my pedal to the metal because I believe that is the essential question that we have to ask right now in the age that we're in. Because if you don't know who you are, you're going to get off track. You're going to get off beat. This whole move and shift that is changing changing our world right now, and not just our country but our world. Can you believe that all over this world that there are protests, there are things that are going on, things that are being said, things that are being questioned, authorities that are being questioned, things that have been questioned that we never said anything about? It's beginning to happen now, and they're not letting go of it. And I believe that this thing is spiritual in its nature. As a matter of fact, next week I'm going to be talking about 5 stones, 5 smooth stones. You know the story about David and Goliath and how, well, he couldn't take them down without those 5 smooth stones. And every single one of those 5 smooth stones, those 5 smooth stones, and every single one of us are stones. We are smooth. We have been hewn. We have gone through so many things. So next week I'm going to be talking about that. But this first pillar, this first image, who I am, what am I about? And why is this important? And why is it that people don't want me to realize who I am? Why would the image of people want to be erased from history? Why would the image of my spirituality and what it really is about want to be pushed away and pushed back? Now, it's very easy when I read scripture, and this scripture is found in Matthew chapter 16. This is going to be our base. You'll notice that as I've been on Sunday mornings and even on Wednesdays evenings, I'm giving you chapters. I'm kind of giving you a heads up where the verses are, but I'm giving you these chapters. And not just chapter and verse and putting the scripture on the screen. That's what we've always done. I'm trying to get a little bit away from it because I realize it's convenient for you. But I think right now we need a little inconvenience. Maybe it's time for us to go to our scriptures for ourselves. So I'm going to give you the chapter, and it begins chapter 16, beginning at verse 1. Start reading it. And I'll paraphrase a little bit. Jesus has finished a meeting and preaching to some people and had a good class, actually fed 5,000 people beside women and children, and got in a boat, and he and his disciples, about 12 of them, got in a boat, and they went to the other side of this lake. When they got to the other side, well, as they were getting close, Jesus makes a statement, and he says, this is a clear blue sky, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Now, I know that doesn't sound like an interesting story at all. Don't you click off from me. It's wait till I get to it. He says, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, or the yeast, or the ingredient that makes the wine potent. In other words, not the ingredient that takes it from grape juice to that which can get you wherever you want to go in your head, at least temporarily. And Jesus said, beware of the leaven, the yeast, the fermentation, the alcohol of the Pharisees. The Pharisees were the religious teachers. The Sadducees were the political teachers. Religion and politics. Religion, politics. I tell you, it's going to get there. Religion, politics. Beware of the fermentation of religion and politics. Watch it. Beware of their teaching. He said, because it's going to get you in trouble. So the disciples turned around and they said, well, what is he upset at us because we don't have any bread? They thought he was talking about natural. And Jesus finally said, listen, I'm not talking about bread. I'm talking about teaching. Because how we are taught can determine how we see ourselves. How I am taught determines how I see myself. And then Jesus goes into this next phase, which I don't want to get into too deep because I'll be there all day long. I love this passage. And Jesus begins to ask them the question, who do men say that I am? Who am I? Who do people say that I am? What's the buzz on the street? What's the thread? What's Black Twitter saying? What is YouTube saying about me? And they begin to say, well, here's what they're saying about you. Bam, bam, bam. Here's how you're trending. Bam, bam, bam. Jesus says, now, forget the trending. What do you say about me? Who do you say I am? They were quick to talk before. Now it got quiet. I'm going to tell you how this thing came up a little bit later on, how it came out a little bit later. Got quiet. And I began to look at this thing. I said, why is Jesus so concerned with image? I didn't say it bothered him. I just said he was concerned. Who do people say that I am? Who do you say that I am? Because who we are is the basis from which we live our lives. And if you don't know that, if that's been taken from you, you're going to have a hard time. John chapter 10, get a chance, read it. And Jesus begins in that top chapter. He says, I am the shepherd. I am the good shepherd. He said, now look out after my sheep. And then he says, I am the door. I am the gate. And my job is to open up the gate for the sheep to go in and to go out. He said, I am the door of the sheep, not the door of God. He said, the door to heaven. He says, I am the door of the sheep. In other words, I can open up the door to allow the sheep to go to certain pastures, certain places to eat and to come back and all those wonderful things. Then he says, they're not in danger because my sheep know my voice. The word voice, phone. In other words, they understand. They got my cell number. My sheep know my voice. And a stranger they won't follow. And so he goes on to teach these things. And so out there in his audience are Sadducees and Pharisees, the religious leaders and the political leaders, religion and politics. They're out there. And they hear him talking about that. But understand now, they know who Jesus is. This is a small town. These are small communities. They have been hearing about this magnificent teacher, so they came to see him. They came to hear him. And they said, oh, wow, look at this Jesus movement. This movement is going fantastic. The crowds are following. The protesters are there. All this is happening. This is 2,000 years ago. And then they turn around and they say to Jesus, isn't this Jesus, the son of Joseph? And another section, it says, isn't this Jesus, the son of Mary? Which is a very interesting statement because back then that was that patriarch kind of view, and it was more, the women were pushed back, the men were pushed forward. Isn't that Joseph's son? Isn't that Mary's son? And when they said Mary's son, what they were saying was, we're not sure who his father is. This is religion and politics. The goal was to bring down his image, because if they could bring down his image, not merely his image of himself, if they could bring that down, because they can begin to start stopping something else. Now watch this. And when they said it, Jesus kept saying, well, I come from my Father. Me and my Father, we are one. I come from my Father. I come from my source of life. God is my Father. And they like, whoa, you mean to tell me our God, you consider our God as your Father? Jesus said, of course, I come from him. And they said, hey, this is where we get off this train. And Jesus said, they said, but you think you're God? And Jesus says, well, in your scriptures, we are called little gods or offspring of gods. Most people don't even realize that the word Christian does not mean necessarily a follower of Christ. It means little Christs. It means small, tiny Christ. It means not just a follower, but Christ. We are as Christ in this world. We in this world, we are as he is in this world. And Jesus goes on and says, but you all talk about being little gods or offsprings of gods. And they say, yeah, but how dare you talk about you are the son of God, not a physical son. See, we get that all mixed up. We think to be a son of God means that you came, from sperm and egg and thing. Oh, no, we don't get that all mixed up. Finally, they turn around and Jesus says, but look at my works. They said, cool. He said, look at the miracles. Cool. Look at the things that I'm doing in the city. Cool. Look at the things that I'm doing in the country. Cool. Look at the healings and look at the things that are making people's lives better. And they said, fine. Jesus said, you're going to stone me for that? They said, we would never stone you for your good works. You're doing great. What we will stone you for is blasphemy, for saying that you come from God and that these works come from God. That's what we will stone you for. And Jesus turns around and says to them, I and my Father are one. And that sets them off. And from that point on, for the rest of his ministry, the issue has been about image and how you see yourself, how you view yourself. And this is what we understand the power of Jesus and where the power of Jesus comes from. Your spiritual power, your ability to lay hands on the sick and heal, your ability to lift and encourage people comes from how you see yourself. If you see yourself as someone who's down and out, basically that's how you're going to teach. You're going to teach down and out Christianity. If you see yourself as a beat up old sinner, you're going to teach others that they're all beat up old sinners that need to get saved. When you see yourself as not connected with God, but just trying to get connected, trying to make it, then the gospel you preach will be a gospel of we all trying to make it in. We all trying to get to God. We all trying to find God in our lives. And the next thing you'll realize is the only thing you'll be after, and that is to try to somehow get to heaven, to somehow get to God, to somehow make it in. And maybe hope that Jesus will come back fast so we don't have to go through any more protests. Because when you don't see yourself connected, who I am, you're always going to look for someone to save you and to help you. Image. And every day you wake up, I always like to use the term the devil. The devil, I look at it not as somebody with a pitchfork and a red suit and a pointed tail and horns. The devil is those things that will seek to keep you from becoming everything that you're supposed to be. The devil is that which will try your last nerve and to make you believe that you're not all that you cracked up to be. You're not all that in a bag of chips. The devil is someone that wants to keep you slightly under somebody else's thumb, so you're already always dropping your eyes and trying to be like them. If I can be like a celebrity, if I can be like this athlete, if I can be like this, then maybe I can be somebody and the world will look up to me. Well, what are we learning about athletes? What are we learning about celebrities? Especially if you're people of color. We've begun to learn something. We've begun to learn that you can be the greatest black basketball player in the country, in the world. Your name could be all over the place, and people will people will go to the gym of other colors and races. They will learn how to dribble a ball like you. They will learn how to shoot like you. They will learn how to move like you. They will learn how to jump like you, and they will love you as that basketball player, but they will not love you as a person because of your color. We're learning that. And we're learning it because you could worship at the altar of the athlete. But would you let your daughter marry him? So we begin to understand the generation that we're living in. There's this disconnect. And I opened up by talking about statues because the question is why are they tearing down these statues? Well, I don't think I have to tell you why they're tearing them down. Because these statues represent something. And so there are people that are saying, well, this is the culture of people. Why tear down the Confederate flag? Why are they tearing down statues? This is a culture. This is our culture. What kind of culture? It is a culture, of course, that's rooted in the war between the North and the South. And what was the war all about? It was about slaves. What about slaves? Slaves, in order to be slaves, had to be based on the fact that they were less than or other than. So every day, if you've got a statue of Jefferson Davis, if you've got a statue of Robert E. Lee, if you've got a statue every day when you go to a school or you're in Mississippi and you're seeing the Confederate flag flying over the Capitol or over the university or something, and you're seeing this every day, and you're a person of color, and you're being reminded by this image that you are less than, because that's what it's saying. It's saying that you're less than. This is what we're telling our brothers and sisters. What we're saying to our white brothers and sisters, what we're saying, not just to our white, but our Latino, our Asian, all of our brothers and sisters. Because we're living in a culture that almost says the darker you are, the other you are. The lighter you are, the better you are. In other words, the equality can be, and some people say, well, I don't see color. Oh, listen, you got to see color. You haven't arrived. You say, well, I'm colorblind. Then you haven't arrived yet. Don't even begin there. If you got friends that are black, let me tell you, don't tell them I'm colorblind. Don't say I'm colorblind. Because when you say I'm colorblind, it says that I don't see you. Of course we see color, but it's what that color means. I was sitting down doing a study about race, and after a while I just had to say, I stopped. I mean, I get it and I understand the concepts of race, but I didn't want to go too far in it because it kept shifting and it kept changing. Who's black and who's white? I said, wow. The Supreme Court started making judgments and saying, if you're this, you're black. If you're this, you're white. On the form, they said race. Now they took the word race off. Ethnicity. Now the word, and actually that's a better word term for it, is ethnicity rather than race, because race becomes this term that people use that's based on a particular, based on color. But we already know you can be blue-eyed, blonde hair, and be an African. This in South Africa. We already know that. We already know that you can, Americans are not just all white, but Americans come in all different colors. So we understand that. But when you get up in the morning and when you go to school and you have, or to college, and you're in college somewhere, and you see a Confederate general statue on the grounds of greeting you every day, what does that do to your mind? Some say it don't bother me at all. This thing's subliminal, my brother. Subliminal, my sister. These are things that keep you reminded of the Confederacy. Keep you reminded that the South will rise again. That keep you reminded that slavery was always at the core of that. That's why there was a war. Now they begin to tear the statues down. I don't know what they. You better watch it, because I don't know what they're going to tear down next. Because they tore down the Confederates, and then they started going after, I think, some of the presidents that had slaves. They're just statues. We don't know how far this is going to go. We don't know how this is going to turn out. But I remember in the Bible one time, there was a story of three boys. And one was named Shadrach, the other was named Meshach, and the other was Abednego. And those three were there, and the story goes that they had made a statue of the king. They had made a statue of the king at that particular time. And the story was that when music would play in the kingdom, everybody had to bow down to the statue. They had to kneel to the statue. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who they called the Hebrew boys, these boys, they heard the music, they refused to bow, so they stood. Ours is a little bit opposite. When you hear the music of the Star-Spangled Banner, you're supposed to stand and not kneel or take a knee. Interesting. Anyway, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego got in trouble for standing. Just like when the Star-Spangled Banner is played, you get in trouble if you kneel. And so they were going to throw them in this fiery furnace because they held to the fact that we do not bow down to an image that says to us, I am less than. Think about how many images do you run across every day in your life, on television, that make you uncomfortable, that make you feel a little uncomfortable, that make you feel a little bit less than. This is where we learn that those images in our lives have to come down. How many of us have been told bad things about our fathers? And, you know, everybody doesn't have a great life with their fathers. I know we call this Father's Day, but everybody that's listening right now didn't have a great life with their fathers. I think some of you that are listening right now can say, hey, Father's Day is almost kind of meaningless to me because I didn't have a great relationship with my father. My father hurt me. My father took me through some changes. And especially in our African American community, thank God for the fathers that we have. And I salute every one of our fathers that are out who are doing the best they can for their children. Let me tell you something. There has been an escalation of fathers, especially black fathers, that are taking more and more time with their children than ever before. They may not be married to the mothers, but they are taking their time with their children, and they are standing their ground, and they're being fathers to their children. They're not running off. You know, people always talk about how black fathers are leaving their children. Listen, there are a lot of people that do it regardless of the race. But let me tell you what's happening with black fathers now. That percentage is going up and up and up, that I'm seeing young fathers that are taking time with their children. And I applaud you. I applaud you. And I say thank. And whatever we can do as church, as Christians, as what we're supposed to help, be able to help you do what you do. That's what our goal is. I support all those organizations that are helping young fathers to raise those kids. Because it wasn't always like that. You got to remember the history. You got to remember the slave history. See, we weren't talking about this before. Because we would talk about it and our people, oh, we don't want to talk about the slaves. We don't want to talk about that back then. But what we fail to realize is that now that we are understanding about epigenetics, we are understanding that there are things that are passed down from generation to generation. It goes into the DNA. It copies into the DNA. And something can become a generational curse if we don't know how to cast it out. This is what Jesus did. This is why Jesus said, beware of the leaven or the teaching or the doctrine of religion and politics. Don't let the statues pull you down. Temptations had a song like that. Don't let the Joneses get you down. And what that meant was, don't look at somebody else and see what they have. And look at your life and say, I don't have it, so therefore I'm less than. If you're going to do that, you're going to be going all the rest of your life thinking of yourself as less than because you don't have a house in the suburbs, or because you don't drive the kind of car you want to drive, or because, you know, your skin color is not the way you think somebody else is making because of their skin color. Listen, you got to learn how to play the hand that you've been dealt. Look, I'm an old bid whist player. How many know what bid whist is? I ain't talking about spades. I'm talking about whist. I'm talking about bid whist. That means when you deal them cards and you put that 6-card kitty right in the middle of that table. I'm not talking about a kitty that you can look at when you say, you going to flip the kitty over? Oh, no, you don't flip that kitty over. You got to learn how to read those cards. Sometimes I get those cards, and guess what? I don't have a trump in my hand. Well, what that means is I don't have no help. But you got to learn, even when you don't have any help, even when a trump is not there on your side, you got to learn how to play the hand that you are dealt and make a good hand out of a bad hand. Why? Because look across that table. Baby, you got a partner. When you look at me over here, this is why I teach week after week, Sunday after Sunday, Wednesday after Wednesday. This is why my whole goal in life right now is to lift, to encourage, to strengthen, to love you until you can love yourself. And if you don't love yourself, but to love you till you can love yourself. My goal in life, my sole purpose, is to let you know and to help you discover in the dark places who you are. And not let and to pull down the statues that are trying to tell you you are less than, or the images are trying to tell you that you are less than, or to be deterred by a hand in your hand, a with hand that is saying you can't win this hand. I came to tell you, you can win this hand. You can make this work. You can do this. Something happens, it's happening in our country and in our world. And the word on the street is we can do this. And if you don't want to help us, look, we can help ourselves. I got a partner sitting across over there in you. And together, If I can learn how to depend on you and learn how to play this game, we can win this hand. And if we win this hand, we can win the next hand. And baby, we can win this game. And we don't even have to have a trump in our hand. Jesus, it's interesting how Christianity has portrayed Jesus as this weak kind of image, this looking up into the sky and the light shining in his eyes kind of image. We fail to realize that Jesus was a worker. And I'm always leery about how we paint image statues anyway. Because every time we make statues and paint images, that's our depiction of how we see somebody. But it's not always the way other people see it. You say, well, that's my culture. Well, maybe your culture needs to put the painting in your own house or put the statue over there on your own dresser. And then you can go in and look at it all day long. But when you try to bring it out, what you're trying to do is say to the outside world, this is my culture. You need to be a part of my culture. You need to be reminded of what this thing means. And if it's the Confederacy, I don't want to be reminded of that every day. And now it's time for us to talk about it. We're not talking about it. And we're just saying, I don't like it. Because it's making the suggestion of you are less than, that you are other. Well, here's what religion has to say. Here's what faith is now beginning to say. Okay, here is what I call, I'm not going to call it the new Christianity, but I'm going to call it the Christianity that we've been teaching for some. If you haven't been, what we should have been. If you haven't been saying it, here's what we should have been saying it, because it's right there in the scripture. It's in black and white. And I'm going to tell you that one thing that was said in that whole 16th chapter, that one thing that was said that unlocked everything. It unlocked a door that on the other side was the greatest wealth, the greatest healing, the greatest sense of self, the greatest thing that unlocked how we look at life, that can unlock how we can keep this whole movement going that is now shifting and changing this world. Because believe me, if you think that the devil is going to let this happen without a fight, you got enough thought coming. You're seeing all this happen. You think there's not going to be a pushback? You think there's not going to be a fight? You think there's not going to be somebody on the other side that's going to say, oh, you ain't taking this. You can't have this. You think that there are not going to be people that said, you can't have this kind of America. There is no going to be no even look at each other like we're all as one. That's not going to happen. It's going to be a pushback. But here's what you got to know about that pushback. Here's what you got to understand. Here's a principle. And I'm going to tell you about that principle right on the other side of this. And then we're going to pray for this country. Because let me tell you something. I firmly believe that prayer yesterday in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I firmly believe that it was prayer covering Tulsa, Oklahoma that changed the dynamics of that whole entire meeting that happened. You know, if you don't know about it, the president was there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tulsa, Oklahoma, of course, you understand, is Juneteenth was Friday, but Tulsa, Oklahoma was where in 1921 Black Wall Street was bombed. Over hundreds of people, black people were killed. The history was hidden. They're looking for the mass graves. And if they find those mass graves with the bones of all those black people in there, don't listen to the other side. where they're talking about get ready because they're coming in to kill your children and and rape your wives and all those things. Listen. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to all that junk, because that's been a dog whistle that's been whistled for years. There's a whole lot more intelligence here. There's a whole lot more spiritual power here. A whole lot more. And I'm going to tell you that one thing that Jesus finally got to, that gives us the thing that unlocks this door here. And just before I do it, remember, and I say this each and every week, because I believe that we are blessed to be able to continue to bless. And when I say bless others, that means to water the seeds of the blessings that are inside of other people. I believe this is something that I look at. I don't think that blessings come down from the sky. I believe that the blessings are already in us in seed form, but you have to water them. And if you don't water them, they don't grow. It's like bean seeds, corn seeds, all in the ground. If you don't water it, they just stay there. But when the rain comes down and the moisture touches it, which is what we're doing right now, I believe that when the word hits it, the word means logos, which means the intent, plan, purpose. When the intent, plan, and purpose of God connects with what's inside of you, kabam! I believe things begin to sprout up. Things begin to grow. I see things growing in you. I see things growing in your life. I see ideas happening in your life that were not there before. You're exploring areas you haven't explored before. Some of you started going to school online, going to college online. Some of you learn how to cook desserts. You learn how to do things you never did before. And out of this pandemic, it's not going to be an epidemic of evil, but it's going to be something that's going to lift for good. But we cannot allow, once we sweep the demon out, Jesus says you can't cast the demon out and don't fill up the house with something else, or 7 more demons will come in. And we certainly don't want to cast the demon out and try to do church like we've always done church. You know, sing a couple songs and preach a nice sermon, make people feel good, and then go home. This is why I've chosen, during this time, during this pandemic, to come with you face to face, person to person, sanctuary to sanctuary, eyeball to eyeball, and say, listen, this is what I see concerning Christ. How do you see it? This is how I see God. It's not just somebody up there, but somebody in here. How do you see it? And as we do this and face each other face to face, then we get the opportunity to know who each other is. Know them that labor among you. This is what giving is. This is what support is. I've been doing this for over 45 years. Over 40 years right here in the city of Houston. You know me. Originally from Cleveland, Ohio. Those of you that are watching from out of town, you know me. And we all know that we've sacrificed things to make things happen. Well, now, this is the time that we can really make things happen. I want you to take a moment, and you can go to the website, www.myalc.org. myalc.org. That's one word, myalc. And you can hit the donate button. Big old button there. And it'll take you so easy to a place. It'll just guide you through of how you can give. You can use your debit card, you can use your credit card. It'll just take you right through. It's just so, and all those different things. And I want to say thank you in advance For those of you that, given that little box, I think they put a little box there, something for Father's Day, to say thank you for Father's Day. Thank you for your love offering. I want to say thank you for it personally, because you have been so fantastic over the years in my almost 40 years of ministry in ALC. I am loving I didn't say I have loved, because I'm not going anywhere. I have loved every minute of being with you and getting to know you and your family, and watching over the years as your children grow up. I've loved it. So when you give, be generous in your giving. Not only that, but you can also give on your app if you got your phone. If you downloaded the app. Some of you are still learning. Download the app. You can go and download. Type in Ed Montgomery, and you'll see my ALC. The app will come out, the Abundant Life Center app, and you'll see it, ALC. Bam, download it. And then from that point, you can get the radio shows. When I come on the radio every Monday, you can get the radio shows. You can get all the past radio shows, all the messages, all the different. You can get all that stuff right there on the app. And you can also give on that app. And the third way through it, you can also give through text to give. And text to give is so simple, so easy. Sometimes I think it's hard, but it's not. You can type in the message section, like you type your text. You can type $5, put the number 10 or 20, $2, $7, whatever you text in that text to give, put it there. Then in the word where you said the 2, put the number in. And that number is, see, I keep psyching myself out like I don't know the number. I don't know. 713-742-2035. Please tell me I'm right.
Yes.
I psych myself out and tell me I don't know, but I do know it. 713-742-2035. That number hopefully is there on your screen, and so you can see it real easy. And type it in, and you can give right now. If you don't do it, right after I finish forget what I'm saying, and type it in, or type it in after we finish saying what we're going to say. But do it. Because right after this, we're going to be praying for fathers, and I'm especially going to be praying for young fathers. I'm going to be praying for those who may have lost children, because all of these different people that you've seen, some fathers have lost their sons and their daughters, and we're going to pray together, because prayer will change things. So thank you for your contributions and what you've done. Let me get back to this one thing that Jesus heard, that Jesus centered on, that began to change something. And after he had asked his disciples, "Who do men say that I am?" Some say you're a prophet, you're John the Baptist, you're Elijah, you're Jeremiah, Jesus was sitting there, and I'm sure they all were saying, "You're the greatest of the greatest." Jesus said, yeah. He said, but here's more important. It's not about what the folks are saying or what's trending on Twitter. Who do you say that I am? Because we are the ones that are working together. And they got quiet. And for that one break, no one said anything until Jesus's disciple, Simon Peter. Simon Peter was the cusser. When Simon Peter spoke, every other word was a cuss word. It took Jesus 3 years to help Simon Peter, and he still didn't get everything straight. He was not a yes man. He was not the guy that, all in church. Yeah. He was always questioning things, asking things. And even if he said, "I'm going with you, even unto death," he was with Jesus always into the thick of things, until one day he just denied him, tore him up inside. But Jesus opened the door for him to be able to get back. And here's what he said to Jesus. He says, "Thou art the Christ, you are the Messiah, you are the anointed one, the Son of the living God." Now let me tell you what that means. It doesn't mean that Jesus was the biological son from a sperm and an egg of God. That's not what it means. You trace it down. He said, you are the special one. You're the anointed. You are the offspring of God, the very thing that all the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the religion and the politics, said that Jesus was not. This is what his own people said that he was. It is so important for you to be able to say that about your own people. When I look at you, I've got to be able to say, I'm looking at God. When I look at you, I'm looking at Jesus. When I'm looking at you, I cannot believe that somebody else is colder than your ice. I cannot believe that somebody else's teaching is better than your teaching, or somebody else's church is better than your church. I can't believe. I've got to be able to understand and even look past your blackness and realize that beyond your blackness is someone that is like God. Because when black people don't like black people because of certain shades of color, you come to the point that you have to realize that even we have to know that we are one people. White, Latino, Asian, black, the indigenous people of our country. Let me tell you what happens when God, Jesus, understood that, and he knew it, but when he heard it, he said to Peter, and behold, I give you the keys of the kingdom, and whatsoever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatsoever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. The power of binding and loosing is based on the knowledge of who you are. When you know who you are, those are when doors open up. When you know who you are, those are when the doors of health and healing and life open up. When you know who you are, those are when the doors where you're able to love yourself when you don't even know how to love yourself. Those are the doors that open. It is knowledge. It is understanding. It is a clarity of thought about your Godness. This is what changes your life. And when that happens, Jesus says, you can come to the Father, and if two of you, you and your bid-whist partner, can touch and agree. Jesus says, my Father will do anything for you. I believe this past Saturday, folk were praying. It was prayer that kept folk from just going in and getting sick at a rally. I believe it was prayer. When we look past race and we begin to see ethnicity and we realize, I see your color. Here's why I want to see your color. I want to see white. I want to see black. I want to see brown. I want to see in the middle. I want to see all the spectrum of everybody's color, everybody's shade. I want to see it all. I would love to line up from white to the blackest of black to the whitest of white, from Sweden down to Africa. I love to line everybody up and all the colors in between. Why? So I could see the different shades. Why would you want to see that? So I can be reminded of what God sees. Because each shade of color is mercy. And when that scripture says, and every morning, his mercies are new. Every time I see somebody with a different color, I see another shade of mercy. And it reminds me that God is from everlasting to everlasting. Oh, the statues may come down, but when you know who you are, it don't matter. It doesn't matter at all. You ready to pray? Let's cover this world with prayer. Let's cover this country with it. First of all, I want to lift up fathers. And I want to say to every father that's been locked up with your kids, I want to say to you, Father in heaven, we lift them up. I thank you for their providence. I thank you for their steadfastness. I thank you for keeping them in the midst and throughout all of this. Lord, I pray for the father that's providing. I pray for the father that may not have biological children. Yeah, that's my timer. Don't worry about it. I pray for the father that does not have biological children. And I pray for the input that he's given into the lives of children all over this world. I pray for men right now, especially men of color who may not have their own physical children, but they've gathered around them other children from the community. You've been helping them to become men. Pray for mothers that are supporting fathers and letting them be who they are. Let me tell you something, guys. You couldn't be who you are unless that woman that's by your side is letting and helping you to be who you really believe you can be. I pray for the children that are growing up in homes. Some homes may not be as safe as others, but I pray for these children. I cover them with your love, and I cover them with your kindness, and I cover them with your safety and protection. Keep them in your hand when something may happen to them at the hands of some adult. Keep them safe, psychologically, philosophically, spiritually. I pray that you're covering every protester, white, black, Latino, Asian, every shade of mercy. I pray for them. Keep them safe. I pray for police officers who are at a place in their lives right now. They've got to know who they are. And they have to change from what they were into another level of what they can be. I pray for this country. And I pray that its latter end will be better than its former. And I pray that as the definitions of God shift and change, I pray that the church house will not be the focus, but that the church as people will be the focus. Let us learn as the church that when we, the church, we go to the church house and we make it the church house, but when we leave, we're still the church. We leave the building and we fan out among our communities and make our communities better. Listen, I thank you for these things, Lord, and if I've forgotten anything, you know the heart. I trust you for it. Amen. Thank you, Lord, for already answering this prayer. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And once again, I want to wish you a happy Father's Day. And I'm going to tell you a little secret, what they did to me. And I just really think it's just unfair. My wife was cooking. And she opened the door while I'm talking to you and let me smell the food coming in. And I could smell it. And I'm trying to talk what the Lord said. And I'm just as hungry as I be.
Hallelujah. Well, happy Father's Day to you. Happy Father's Day to all of those that are watching.
Hey.
And we just want you to be the representative.
What is this?
And this is your favorite chocolate mousse cake that I made from H-E-B. From H-E-B.
You know I knew good well you ain't made this. You made it from H-E-B?
From H-E-B.
It's your cake because you...
Yeah, this is your favorite.
See, you're going to let people going to think that I do this, eat this chocolate cake and stuff like this all the time.
No,
but I'm not watching my health.
This is for just today.
And I'm not going to eat all this.
No, you're not going to eat all
I mean, I would mail some of it to you all, but by the time it got to you, it wouldn't be right. But you can go to our personal chef, H-E-B, and get whatever you want.
Well, we have greens.
What you have?
And macaroni and cheese.
Girl.
tossed salad, filet mignon.
Filet mignon.
Yes, and wonderful rolls for
You
you
do know these are things.
that you like.
Yeah, but I'm not supposed to be eating them all the time. But I don't eat them all
Just
the time.
today, just today.
I'm just gonna eat a little bit of them, right?
Now for everybody, you're gonna have to take your lunch thing.
But
That's because this your cake. Dude.
this is my cake. This is my cake. Ooh.
There you go. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers.
Listen.
We love you.
Take care of yourself. Put your mask on. See that? See my mask? Ain't that a beautiful mask? It's my mask. Put your mask on. I know some of you are saying, "Oh, well, listen." Don't you let that devil get you like that. Put your mask on, wash your hands, and keep your social distance. And you don't know what them folk trying to do. You need to do that. Take care. We need to stay right here with each other. Let's take care of each other and let them. They can laugh at you all they want. And to all of my young brothers and sisters of ALC, and I know y'all been going out there without your mask. Put that mask on.
Yes.
Take care of your folk, okay? I love you.
All right.
We gotta go.
God bless.
Bye. I'm ready to eat. I'm going to eat it too.
Yeah, there you go.
Want some more?
There you go. Okay, we gotta put it back in the refrigerator so we can.